America's Main Street, U.S. Route 1, has seen milestones of both the physical and figurative sense, marking the major moments in American history. Yet this corridor has seen so much change in the last 3 centuries, visitors and residents are often unable to see the history beneath their feet. The area through which U.S. Route 1 now runs was still rural and agricultural in character in the early 18th century. Bladensburg was an important port town with wharves, taverns, and stores. In 1747, 5 years after Bladensburg establishment, the General Assembly passed an act to amend the staple of tobacco and established tobacco ports by providing for a wharf, scales, warehouse, and an inspector of each port of entry. By the middle of the 18th century, as the ports were booming, a roadway connecting Baltimore to Georgetown via Elkridge Landing and Bladensburg came into use. By the 1790s, taverns had been established along its course, some frequented by George Washington, and a mail route was started. Consideration was being given to making the route a toll road. In 1812, the state of Maryland chartered a company to build a turnpike between Washington and Baltimore. Along the right-of-way were milestones, only one of which has survived. The stone, which stood on the grounds of the White House Tavern in Beltsville, reads 25M miles to B, Baltimore. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad began operation in 1835, and soon after that, traffic on the turnpike began to decrease. Maintenance of the road deteriorated, and by the period of the Civil War, the turnpike was in serious trouble. After the Civil War, and during the later decades of the 19th century, residential suburbs began to develop along the lines of the railroad and the old turnpike. Streetcars began rolling into the region in the 1890s. In 1897, trolley service began from the district line at Mount Rainier into the District of Columbia. These streetcars followed the line of the extended Rhode Island Avenue, reaching Brentwood, North Brentwood, Hyattsville, and Riverdale Park. In the later parts of the 19th century, good roads advocates called for improving major routes in the country. With the increasing use of the automobile by travelers seeking to go longer distances, the roads were becoming hazards for those traveling in the early days of the automobile. Local development of automobile-related businesses grew, such as the car manufacturer Carter Motor Company in modern Edmonston and the Hyattsville Automobile Company, a former horse livery stable turned repair shop. Maryland established a roads commission responsible for working with counties to improve and maintain routes, including the historic Turnpike route. New systems for paving roads were developed. As suburbs grew and private automobiles increased, pressure on the U.S. Route 1 mounted. In the 1940s, the road was seeing a crush of vehicles and associated growth. Roadside development such as gas stations, cabins and motels, and diners of various types encroached on U.S. Route 1, pushing their signs closer and closer to the driver. To move away from this crush of ugly development, government officials developed and began construction of the Baltimore-Washington Parkway in the early 1950s. This 4-lane concrete highway cut through the region and connected communities, allowing for faster travel in and out of cities without the roadside sprawl. Development of the Capitol Beltway, the Baltimore Beltway, and Interstate 95, built to improve a part of the parkway, would be made in the 1960s to decrease travel time even further, spurring more development. Nearly 3 centuries ago, U.S. Route 1 corridor was a rural agricultural area traversed by a north-south pathway. Now the route is heavily traveled highway through residential, commercial, and industrial areas with parallel highways and superhighways. Multiple transportation methods, including bike trails in and out of the cities, have come together to create a complex tapestry of systems. However, beneath this transportation network is a Maryland milestone, a route with a long history of innovation and transportation that has shaped America and the landscapes for 3 centuries.